Welcome to part one of this screencast on Perek Yud, the 10th chapter of Sefer Yehoshua, where we'll learn how Yehoshua made the sun stand still. Recall from Perek Tet, the 9th chapter, that the Givonim from the city of Givon in the Chivi region of Eretz Canaan played a trick on Yehoshua and the Jewish people. They, of course, located in Eretz Canaan, were supposed to be conquered as part of the Jewish people's conquest of the land. But posing as strangers from a faraway land, not subject to the conquest, the Givonim managed to secure a peace treaty with the Jewish people under false pretenses by faking them out. Well, we learned Yehoshua honored that peace treaty, but the other people living around the Givonim weren't quite as pleased. In fact, they were pretty upset that the people of Givon would sell themselves out to the Jewish people. We remember, of course, that they became their water carriers and their wood choppers, and they were none too pleased with that arrangement. Now, Yehoshua and the Jewish people are camped in Gilgal. The Givonim, of course, are located nearby. Now, there are 5 kings from 5 different neighboring towns who were pretty upset with Givon and decided to attack them as a form of payback for what they had done. Those kings are from the cities of Yerushalayim, Hebron, Eglon, Lachish, and Yarmut. And the leader of these 5 kings was Adoni-Tzedek, the king of Yerushalayim. So they gang up on the people of Givon and they planned to attack them as a form of payback for what they had done in securing a peace treaty with the Jewish people. Now the people of Givon, once they see that they're under attack, plead with Yehoshua to come to their defense. Now if you're Yehoshua, what would you do? Would you come to the aid of the Givonim? Do you think they deserve another chance after they've already acted dishonestly? Go ahead and pause the screencast, think about that question, make a prediction, and then continue playing to find out what happens next. So Yehoshua, a man of his word, keeps to the peace treaty and sends the nation to go protect the Givonim against these 5 kings who had attacked them. And the Jewish people are quite successful. They managed to drive away the 5 kings all the way back to the towns of Azekah and Makeda, located there near the center of your screen. And not only did the Jewish people show tremendous military might, but Hashem provided a miracle as well, causing hail and stones to fall from the sky. In fact, the Navi tells us that more men of these 5 kings died as a result of the hailstorm than at the hands of the Jewish military fighters, which is really fascinating. Meanwhile, as the fighting goes on, this fighting, which is taking place on Friday afternoon, presents a challenge to Yehoshua. As the sun begins to set on Friday afternoon, Shabbat will begin. Yehoshua does not want the Jewish people fighting on Shabbat. And so begins one of the greatest miracles of all time, and certainly one of the highlights of Sefer Yehoshua. Some of the most famous words in the entire Navi: Shemesh bagivon dom, the sun stood still over Givon, v'yareach be'emek Ayalon, and the moon stood still in the valley of Ayalon, which is actually located near the city of Sha'alvim, where I spent quite a bit of time not too long ago. The sun literally stood in place as it began to set. And of course, if the sun doesn't continue to set, it remains day. The moon, which had begun to appear, that of course happens as the sun begins to set, the moon becomes more visible around dusk. So the moon also stayed in place. Yehoshua managed to hold the sun and the moon in place so that time literally froze. Time continued to pass by. The Jewish people could still move and fight, but day remained day, and night, Shabbat, never arrived until the Jewish people managed to conquer all of their enemies. And in part 2 of this screencast, we'll find out what happens next after the Jewish people continue their military campaign against the 5 people. But the fact that Yehoshua could hold the sun still, something that he did on his own without asking permission to do, it's a miracle that he created without Hashem's doing, which is also something we'll explore in class, was one of the great all-time miracles. And in fact, it was already predicted back in Sefer Shemot, where Hashem speaks about the great wonders that he's going to do for the Jewish people. And he says, Hinei anochi kareit brit, here I declare a promise with you, the Jewish people, that I'm going to perform niflaot, miracles for you, asher lo nivru v'chol haaretz v'chol hagoyim, that have never ever been performed before, V'ra'achol ha'am asher ata b'kabo, and the nations who are living among you, in this case, the nations who attacked the people of Givon, those 5 cities that we mentioned before, will witness ma'aseh Hashem, the wonders of Hashem, ki norahu, because they are incredible. Why do you think it is, let's take a moment and reflect, that Yehoshua didn't want the people to fight on Shabbat? You remember, of course, that they were allowed to fight on Shabbat when it came to the battle of Yericho. Why is this time different? Go ahead and pause the screencast, think about that question, and make a prediction. Let's take some time to reflect on what we've done. True or false? A total of 4 kings tried to conquer the Givonim. And of course, that's false. It was 5 kings, not 4. Let's try another question. Yehoshua caused the sun to stand still over the city of Givon. Is, of course, a true statement. One of the great miracles, certainly in Sefer Yehoshua and perhaps of all time. And one final review question, just to make sure that we know our facts from the 10th chapter. Did Yehoshua's conquest of the 5 kings take place on Shabbat itself? That is false. It took place on Friday, which is the reason why Yehoshua caused the sun to stand still. He didn't want the Jews to be actually fighting on Shabbat itself. Now that we've covered the first half of the 10th chapter, let's pause and examine some questions that need further explanation, and we'll have a chance to go deeper into this topic some more when we get back together in class. First question I want us to think about is, why didn't Yehoshua want the Jews to fight the 5 kings on Shabbat? You had a chance to think about this question just a moment ago. It's something that we're going to be discussing in more detail together. How did Yehoshua create a miracle without asking Hashem first? When we've seen miracles that have happened in Sefer Yehoshua before, for example, the Yarden splitting, that was something that Hashem promised to Yehoshua, not something that Yehoshua did on his own. So why did Yehoshua feel it necessary to create a miracle without consulting with Hashem first? And finally, were the Jews required to come to the aid of the Givonim, or was this something extra nice and special that Yehoshua did, simply out of keeping his word? These are some of the questions that we're going to explore together when we get back together in class. Looking forward to continuing the learning with you at that time.